Hello, and welcome to mentorDINO. I'm your host, Caitlin Rossier. I am an architect and founder of mentorDINO. I firmly believe that architecture, engineering, and construction professionals can achieve true success by embracing human skills as their guiding principle. So each week, I interview amazing professionals in and around the AEC industry as a way to share stories, inspiration, and advice for others finding their own unique career path. Thank you to all of our current subscribers, and if you're new, we'd love to have you join our community. So if you like this episode, please do me a favor and hit subscribe, like, or leave a comment below. It really helps others be able to discover this resource and support them on their own career journey. So let's dive in. I really hope you enjoy this conversation. Welcome to the mentorDINO podcast. I would like to welcome Matt Morris, Director of Construction at the Efficiency Network within Duquesne Light in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Thank you so much, Matt, for taking the time to speak with me today.
Thanks, Caitlin. Good to be on.
So I know we worked together before on a prior project, so I'm very interested to learn more about your career path before we met on a construction site. So I'm going to start off with the loaded question. And do you mind introducing yourself to let everybody know a little bit about your education and experience you've had so far getting to the Efficiency Network?
Sure. Can be kind of a longer winded answer, but started as a civil engineering student at the University of Pittsburgh. I'll even go a little bit further back than that. So I took architecture classes in high school. I knew I wanted to have something to do with the built environment at a very early age. I was fortunate to be at a high school that had some programs in that sphere in house. So I actually took a CAD class in high school and drew a house that I envisioned with wall details and the whole thing. I didn't understand all the different career paths in construction. Certainly at that age, I don't come from a family that was in the business. So I did a lot of research, and it was infancy of internet age. I'm really starting to show my age. Google really wasn't a thing. There were some websites you could do a little bit of research, but not a whole lot. And I was really looking around at different schools, kind of like junior, senior year of high school. And I kind of came across civil engineering, and then also wanted to look at the construction piece. We're all kind of victims of our counselors in high school and what they can provide us and what their experiences are. So I did pull a couple pieces together on my own, and I was like, okay, there's a civil engineering path and construction. So that really kind of narrowed down some of the schools I was looking at. And I was really down between Virginia Tech and Pitt, and ended up selecting Pitt because they had a little bit more concentrated construction management program.
Mm-hmm.
So I have the full, civil engineering degree, BSCE from Pitt, but I have a focus, a concentration in construction management, which allows, it's very similar courses, but it's a little bit more focused on the construction management piece, which is something I always wanted to do. Sophomore year, Pitt has a co-op program that is pretty successful. It's similar to an internship, but it's a more focused. It's 1 semester on, 1 semester off from work to study. And I ended up getting a co-op with Whiting Turner Construction Company out of Baltimore. So I was down there and then came back and did that rotation through. I was fortunate enough, my last year, I was put on the Pittsburgh Mills project in Pittsburgh. So I finished up my education at Pittsburgh Mills, working as an intern co-op, and had an offer before my last semester started. Went to work for Whiting Turner for about 4.5 years, up and down the East Coast. A lot of travel, did some really neat projects. Got a little tired of the travel. My wife is from Pittsburgh. We were in a relationship, so wasn't able to get worked out to be here in Pittsburgh, but ended up moving back to Pittsburgh and joined Mascaro Construction, which is a local contracting firm here in Pittsburgh. I was there for a little over 10 years, and then had an opportunity to go to Macero, which is a completely separate company in Pittsburgh.
For those
One
not in
letter,
Pittsburgh, they are separate companies.
they are separate companies, one letter difference.
Yep.
This is always confusing, keeps people on their toes. As an opportunity to advance my career, and was a senior project manager for them. And then the Efficiency Network gave me a call about 4 years into that career and offered me director of construction. And timing was right. The opportunity sounded fascinating, so I made the jump. That's the really big picture of how I ended up sitting in the chair I'm in right now.
Yeah. And I know, I guess stepping back a little bit, what I've seen on when the number of projects I've worked on, whenever summer interns come in for the contractor side, I've noticed a lot of students have that civil engineering path. Are you finding that that's pretty standard if somebody is doing engineering with construction management or engineering with it?
So yeah, I think
Or,
as my career has evolved and it's becoming a more mainstream, more educated industry. I think the nice thing about engineers in construction is the problem solving components. Civil engineering is primarily focused on the main challenges that we'll see in a built environment: concrete, steel, dirt.
mm-hmm.
That is a typical civil engineer. They don't teach us about drywall in civil engineering school. They don't teach us about acoustical ceilings, but they do teach you how to work in a team and solve problems and understand multiple inputs and outputs from any situation. So I think that has a lot of good foundational pieces for it.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
No
some
pun
civil,
intended.
yeah, exactly. I'll preface it now. There'll be plenty of those along the way today. Um, But there's also, some civil engineering programs, like I said, at Pitt, where, and other schools that are tailored into some civil engineering components. Um, there are also schools, and I didn't know this kind of growing up, that focus on a, construction manager only. It's not an engineering degree, but it's a construction management degree. And they do a lot of the same things. Um, I've had very good success in my career with people coming out of those schools. I've had good success with mechanical and electrical engineers that as the environment is changing in buildings and those are becoming much more complicated systems. We need those engineers as well to help us understand as a contractor what the building is trying to do, and having that background in mechanical design or electrical design fits into a large percentage dollar wise, effort wise on a job site. So there's certainly a place for people with that expertise as well.
Yeah, I guess it's all about having the community around you of experts, regardless on if you're in particular discipline, if you're on the design side or the construction side, you need those people to have the knowledge base.
Yes, yes, you do.
And then,
Um,
good.
yeah, as I say, I mean, there's no, coming out of school, there's a lot of things you don't know. There's a lot of experience based knowledge that you learn. Being around situations, being, through a difficult concrete pour and understanding some of the challenges allows you to then tailor that in the future. It's impossible to learn all that in a 4 year degree or even a 5 year
Yeah,
degree.
I think that's very similar everywhere in the AEC industry, at least. Students come out thinking they should know everything, but really you're going to learn the most on the job, and it's just through your experiences to how you grow as a professional. But
Yes, I agree. Yep.
and then when you were traveling around, what kind of role were you doing traveling so much?
That's a great question. So again, things I didn't know when I got into this business are the different tiers and the different paths in a construction company. And most young professionals when they graduate kind of have two options, and it really depends on the company. You have what's called maybe a field engineer, or you have a project engineer. And a field engineer would follow kind of the field track on a job site. So they would work and work their way up to, what's commonly called a superintendent, a project superintendent, whose job is day in and day out in the field, orchestrating, conducting, we like to call it, the field operations, making sure the contractors are going where they're supposed to go, doing what they're supposed to do, understanding the flow of the job site day in, day out. Then there's the project engineer path or track, and that feeds typically into the project manager side of construction. So that's going to focus more on some of the administrative things, submittal review, understanding maybe the bigger picture of the project as opposed to the intimate, details that just out in the field, but also the overall operation of the project. The financials are a big piece of that. Understanding the subcontracts, some of the contracting issues, meeting management, some of those things. Not to say that it doesn't happen in the field side. It's just a little bit more prevalent on the project engineer side. So that's where most people start their career. That's where I started my career.
Mm-hmm.
I spent about 4 years, 3.5 years in that role, and then moved to assistant project manager, which is basically project management. Um, and then as you gain experience, you prove yourself as an individual to the company. They'll give you more responsibility. You grow in the project management role or the superintendent role. Um, it's pretty hard to kind of jump back and forth between
Mm-hmm.
those two tracks in a construction company. You'll get a couple of opportunities along the way, but it's a pretty you really start to gain experience in that part of the field, and it makes it hard to make those big jumps, especially later. So you really kind of want to experiment early on and see what feels best to you as an individual, how you can fit and help the company, and then kind of make those decisions. Smaller companies that might be a dual role person, they
Mm-hmm.
do both. The bigger companies is typically pick a track and maybe get a couple of chances to jump back and forth, but not too many. So.
Yeah. So are you picking that track once you are hired at a company, or is this something you need to know on the education side?
You can pick it when you're hired, depending on the position you're applying for. I would argue that some schooling is tailored more towards one or the other. If you're coming out
Mm-hmm.
of a more traditional engineering school, your knowledge base is going to be tailored more towards the project management side. Certainly not to say that you couldn't do both. And same with coming out of a construction management technology school. I think like a Pennsylvania College of Technology is a good example that has a CM program. They're definitely going to have that field leading experience, but also coming out of the trades, especially in Pittsburgh, we've had very good luck with the superintendents coming up through the trades, coming out as carpenters and laborers, spent their life working in
Mm-hmm.
the field and then have started to move into the project superintendent path. So really depends on region, experience, and what you want to do.
Yeah. So those in like the trade path, I'm assuming they would be more, from my perspective, under a subcontractor for a number of years and then flip over to more of a contractor to do a superintendent track formally. Or how's that
Yeah,
broken
so
up?
that's a good question. So certainly is that path with the subcontractor market. It will depend on the company you work for. Some
Mm-hmm.
general contractors, some the ones I named, have self-perform capabilities. They have their own crafts, craft workers, carpenters, laborers, operators,
Mm-hmm.
and there are paths within those organizations to move into superintendent roles, and further even. So really depends on the organization. I think at that point the individual needs to look at the organization they're working for and what they want. Some subcontractors are never going to have a superintendent, and if that's something that an individual wants and is maybe a carpenter, they should look at maybe an organization that has those. So
Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
All these different things and the nuances of
yeah,
our profession that you don't realize
nope,
people do, or different tracks when you're not like honed in. Like I was honed in for so long on the architecture track, and it's
Yeah.
here's my track, and then you're not really paying attention to what engineers are doing or what contractors are doing and
Right.
similar paths. So
There's a lot of moving parts in that, and the experiences and everything else. It's like I said, I was blinded by it when I came out. There was so many different options and choices and things that I didn't know anything about. So it's been a labor of love for the last 20 plus years. So
yeah. And then your role as director of construction. So are you more on now the owner's side, or are you still considered a contractor?
the Efficiency Network, as you mentioned, we are a wholly owned subsidiary of Duquesne Light Holdings. Um, we are what's called an energy services company. So we are performance contractors, design builders. So we play both roles depending on who we're interacting with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the simple answer is I would say we're still a contractor in that we don't own the assets. It's not our facility in most cases. There are certain situations where that could happen, but for the most part, we are engaging with a typically public entity and are then engaged in providing them a design build performance contract model. So then we'll take it and we'll hire designers or have our own in-house design, hire contractors, do some work ourselves. So it really kind of becomes a full service delivery at that point.
So for anybody outside of Pittsburgh, Duquesne Light is an electric company.
Yep.
Um, so are since you do more work on the public side, is that because Duquesne Light is more public utility?
No,
Or
so the opportunities are publicly notified. They're publicly procured. Um, Duquesne Light. So how 10 ended up with Duquesne Light? I should probably answer that question too. 10's been in business 12 years. They started as a startup company. Troy Giannopoulos, Rob Campbell started the company. Troy CEO, Rob is president and COO. And as they grew as a contractor, as a ASCO, ESPC,
Mhm.
um, the typical contractor challenges start to come in as you get bigger. You have bonding limits have to be increased. You're putting up collateral, your house usually,
Mhm.
as an asset to support that growth. You get to a point where it just makes better sense to have a better balance sheet behind you. Um, Troy and Rob saw the growth of 10 coming, saw the projects getting bigger, ended up looking for a buyer, and we're fortunate to come to terms with Duquesne Light. Um, it fits in Duquesne Light's strategic plan for what they see in the region. We do work not just in Duquesne Light's territory. We do work around the Mid Atlantic. We've done work in Maine, Illinois, Virginia, Florida, a couple other places. So, it's been we fit into some of the Duquesne Light's needs, but we are our own entity and we do our own thing. It's not really tied to them being a utility.
Got it. And then how's your role as director of construction different than what you were doing on the project manager side?
Sure. So there's still project challenges that occur. Every job has them. Anybody who says they don't have challenges on their projects is probably not paying close enough attention.
Mhm.
Um, it's primarily now people management and management of the organization and strategy as opposed to individual project success. That's the biggest transition I could say from director versus like a senior project manager or project executive. Um, project executive may have 4 or 5 large projects and a team of project managers working with them, but they're not necessarily setting strategic missions for the company and identifying strategic objectives and goals for the organization. So as a director, that starts to become a piece of that and fitting into the growth of the company.
Yeah, what's been the biggest challenge shifting over to that strategy people management side
So I would
besides
say
those
for
actual things?
yeah, I would say for me, it's managing the diverse uh, personalities that come with it. It's very easy as a project manager, you're focused on your project, and yes, you have a team, but it's a smaller team. It's a focused team. You have the same exact mission: finish this project, make money, get it done on time, keep the customer happy. Um, when you start looking at it from a organizational standpoint, it's how does the team fit together, planning the growth of the individuals as far as like career development, and understanding, this person has to travel to this location, and so there's a lot of strategy into it. Um, Obviously, the performance goals and some of those things that come with that within an organization like Duquesne Light. I mean, one of the advantages is we have Duquesne Light's financial backing. One of the disadvantages is we have a lot of their administrative requirements. So the HR, the
Mm-hmm.
legal, not to say that those are bad things, but that is part of what we have to deal with as a subsidiary, and we need to fit into their needs there. So that's a lot heavier lift than I probably was anticipating when I came
Mm-hmm.
over. Um, but it's fun to learn that too. It's good to learn that.
Yeah, a lot of the times the biggest challenges lead to the biggest opportunities for growth.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, it's a good
what
way to say it.
what's been the most fulfilling part of that position?
I think it's seeing some of the growth of the younger individuals. I've hired a few people, and watching them grow, watching the organization grow. I think it's very rewarding to me. The organization, I enjoy being in the outdoors. It's one of the things I wanted to be in construction. I knew I couldn't sit behind a desk my entire career. Construction allows that opportunity to get out in the field. So, looking at a company like an ESCO, that helps the built environment have less of an impact. Every project we work on, reduces energy, reduces consumption of natural resources. That's important to me. I like that. Um, I enjoy watching. We do a lot of K-12 work, a lot of students, a lot of schools. So putting air conditioning in schools that have never had it before, and kids
Mm-hmm.
coming in when it's 95 degrees out and now they have air conditioning. It's understated, it's underappreciated at times, and that's fine. That's why we do it. To have a much better environment for them to learn. That's pretty rewarding too.
Yeah, because it's even those little projects. You're making a difference in a kid's life and how they learn.
Right,
It's the school doesn't have to close down because it's over 90 degrees. They can
right.
still come in and teach and not sweating. Or I was always cold in my school, but we had AC, so it was more too
Yeah.
much AC.
I mean, I remember sitting in classes where the lights were off, the windows were open, and there had a box fan in the window, and the
Hmm.
teacher would be like yelling over the box fan to teach. They never shut down when I was a kid. That's kind of a
Yeah.
newer thing, but that's okay.
Yeah. From a more trades, construction, young professional mindset, there's been a lot of discussion on just the boomers. 40% of the trades are all going to be retired here in the next 6 years. How are you seeing that from the contractor side? And where do you think we're headed from what your perspective is?
So there is worry, by many contractors, including myself. I mean, that is a very real and sobering fact that as that group ages out, and you know this country, and I'm a product of that, we spent a
Mm-hmm.
lot of time not encouraging kids to get into the trades, whether that be a union, whether that be a trade school. Um, it had a bad connotation. Whatever reasons were out there, um, those things are false. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
today's world, the jobs are safe. We spend a lot of time making sure that the workers are coming to work. It's a safe environment. That it's an accepting, diverse environment. We really, there's always going to be bad actors and problems at
Mm-hmm.
times, but we spend a lot of effort to kind of clean that up and get people to want to work in the trades again, um, to bring that workforce back. There is no remote building a building. It's
Yeah.
it's not possible. So yes, we can do some some prefabrications and some things like that to help reduce the on-site labor, but
Hmm.
we still need trained field workers to put these buildings together. No matter what we can dream up from a prefab perspective, and it's a rewarding career. You don't have the college loans.
Hmm.
It's safe. You're not getting physically beaten up the way it happened maybe 30, 40 years ago. Um, it's a more accepting job site. So you start to put those things together. It's a pretty good opportunity for a lot of people who maybe don't know what they want to do, want to try it out. Even you can start. Almost every trade in Pittsburgh will hire you right out of high school
Yeah.
and put you in an apprentice program and get you started. So, if nothing else, you get to experience it and try it, and if you hate it, okay, at least you tried it. Maybe you love it, and it can become a very rewarding career. There's good financial components to it. So yeah, I think we need it. I think it needs to continue to be a focus. It's a positive thing. It's not a negative by any stretch.
Yeah. I know when I was going through school, it was, I don't know if it was a school I went to per se, but it was like you are going to college, and if you don't go to college, you're a failure. And that is the mindset of the school district I grew up and went to. And I have found a lot of even my classmates, and I graduate with over 700 kids, a lot of them are shifting and doing different things than what even their higher education went for. And they're in tremendous debt. Whereas when you go into the trades, I've done a lot more research on the trade side, and it's they're balancing out with lower certificates, and not saying lower, but like shorter time span to get to certain levels to build up, that then you can shift and specialize, but they're paying you for that education.
Yep.
And so it's, instead of coming out of debt 5 years later, you're building up your knowledge base and earning money a lot earlier. And the tremendous growth opportunities with so many people retiring,
Yeah.
there's a lot of room for growth. And from an architect's standpoint, I'm worried about building them up because of what I design. Do I have to simplify design because the trades aren't there and it needs to be done even more efficient? Because now I can just see buildings going through the roof in terms of cost for trades because of that supply and demand.
That's a great perspective. We've been very fortunate, at least in the Pittsburgh region, with very very talented craftsmen
Mm-hmm.
and women. And I have yet to see buildings get less complicated. To be honest with you, some of the frustrations I have in the business are also some of the greatest prides with some of the things that the architects come up with. Um, it's like I can't believe I'm going to have to try and figure this out. But at the end of the day, when you look back, I can't believe I figured this out with this team and we built this thing, and it's phenomenal. Um, so, and that's the great thing. Like the younger generation, they have the skills on the computers, the advances in technology on job sites from layout perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
We can do a lot of wonderful things, and they fit with that, and they can take that. Where somebody who maybe is at the tail end of their career doesn't want to embrace some of that technology just because they see that I have 2-3 years left. You want me to
Yeah.
completely relearn how I've done it? Like, no. Where the younger group's like, well, yeah, this is great. This is a much
Yeah.
more efficient way to do it, or it can handle a much more complex problem. So, um, I think that there's a great opportunity there, to your point, to bring a great trade through and really help the industry.
Yeah. Because I'm always amazed, like, even just a simple drywalling. I hate drywalling in my own house. So I have a lot of respect for the drywall and contract, the carpenters on site getting all that work done. I also know I'm awful at welding. So when I ask for a fillet weld, I'm like, well, I am awful, and my fillet, like my welds are just like jumbled crap. So it it grows my appreciation for the trades and just seeing all these
Absolutely.
different workshops. And I know I've seen even more women in the
Mhm.
subcontractor role and in the trades as I've grown into different projects. The first few projects I was on, I was the only female on site. And now it's like, oh, what do you do? You're an electrician, you're doing this. Like, what's everybody doing? What's going on?
Yeah,
So,
it's yeah. We don't have the numbers, and not that we want that anymore. We don't. Where that at the male only industry. That's not what construction is. It's a diverse workforce now. It needs to be. It continues to be more projects, bigger projects. We need we need all the people we can get in the industry. If you're willing to come and learn and willing to put the effort in, we'll train. We'll bring you up. Um, we've talked about the rewards. One reward we didn't talk about is you learn a skill that you can use on your own.
mm-hmm.
Um, a carpenter knows how to build a deck, right?
Yeah.
It might be a commercial carpenter, but on the weekend they can help somebody build a deck. I mean, that's another source of income. Um, that's another skill that they can market, that they can use. Um, you kind of see, how people now are willing to pay for services that they weren't 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather was like never going to let anybody do anything in his house. Where
Yep.
now I'm still kind of like that. But there are times I'm like, I'm calling somebody. I'm not doing this. If I had the skills to do it, I would do it myself. So, those are things that in today's America that, a tradesperson can definitely find opportunities all over the place. If, plumber, electrician, whatever, the skills are and can definitely use them. So,
Yeah. I definitely wish I had more in my repertoire of things for my own home. Just be
exactly.
I can detail it and let you know how it needs to be detailed, but the exact how it gets done.
Yep.
And the saying my husband and I have is good enough for government work is when we hit it. So it's like, I'm good
Yeah.
with this. It's just
I'm
the
not
start of
selling it
home.
tomorrow. It's good.
Exactly.
It looks good enough for me. I like it. Yep.
Yeah, but then
Same
don't tell any of the contractors I work with that because
there.
then I hold them to a lot higher of a standard because
Say,
you
I think I
got
still have an open
professionals
item for you.
trying to close out my projects.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for someone that may be interested in the construction side, whether it be trades or the construction management super side?
Yeah. So, I mean, places like this podcast, um, places like career fairs, I know a lot of the contractors are going to high school career fairs now. Talk to the people in the industry. Talk to even, a carpenter that in the industry would be able to give some level of background or point you to somebody who could. I'm fortunate I'm involved in scouts. My son was an Eagle Scout, or is an Eagle Scout. Um, and I've met with some of the other scouts in the troop, and we've talked about careers in construction and engineering. Make sure you talk to those people to understand their paths and what interests you. At the
Mm-hmm.
end of the day, I tell a lot of young people, if you don't love this to a certain extent, the career will eventually weed you out. It is a tough career. It has challenges. There can be very difficult days in construction, very difficult days. It can be incredibly rewarding. It's something that you can drive by the rest of your life, show your kids that you were part of this project. Um, those are things that don't happen in every career. So there's a lot of positives. There are some challenges. So having the perseverance, talking to somebody to understand kind of the different paths where you fit in and where you would enjoy working in that, I think would be some great upfront things. Engineering school is wonderful. There are other paths. You don't have to go to engineering school to be in construction.
Yeah. And to add to that, I'd probably say it's any profession will have its challenges. I know somebody up in New York City that is a lawyer trying to make partner, and they're working 70 plus hour weeks and trying to also raise twins that I think are two now.
Oh my god.
But I watch their life and then I'm like, my life's nowhere near that stressful and going all over the place. And everybody thinks the construction side is the really stressful. I don't want to do that. I'm like, well, any career is stressful. But I
Yep.
think what the magic within the AEC industry is that we all understand those really challenging days and we come together, and if we can build the relationships, then you have somebody to talk to. You can lean on people. When we had issues on a job site, I could lean on you and just say, okay, I don't know what to do here, how would you look at it, and bring perspectives together, because you are one team in the end for the owner, and trying to work through it in a positive manner, and then go get drinks afterwards to feel better.
Numb that pain. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, that's a great point. So, why are you on the project to begin with? There's a contract that says we're going to do X, Y, Z by a certain date for a certain price, whatever that contract may be. At the end of the day, you're there to provide a solution to a customer.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have a contractual relationship. We could have been very adversarial, very black and white. I'm not that. I have never found in my career that benefits me, benefits the customer, benefits my subcontractors. I I don't look at that when I go into my projects. Um, I certainly could live within just that confines of that contract, and that's not fair to anybody. I
Mm-hmm.
think there's opportunities to work together in a collaborative environment, solve very challenging problems together. There are times when I needed your help with things to solve, and to, whether it was dimensionally or how things were going to come together in your mind, and then we could figure out the detail on how it's actually going to get built. Um, there's no way you can do it yourself.
Yeah.
You need to be able to work with others, and that's a two-way street. I've had, I would say, very good success with the architects I've worked with, because I went into it with that approach. Um, we're here for the customer. We're not here to fight with each other. So um, if you do that, I think you
Mm.
can overcome some really crazy challenges, and build some really cool buildings projects.
Yeah, because I've definitely been on the side where it was very combative between the design team and the contractors, and that negativity and work environment, I almost left the industry altogether, because I was also very young in my career and was like, what did I get into? And besides that was, construction issues and failures I had to deal with on that project that grew me technically, that relationship side really changed my perception on how we need to build. And the next job I was on, it was an amazing relationship that I had with the contractor, and we were able to problem solve together and work through solutions. So I got to see both sides. So when I see architects just go, rah, the contractor's just trying to make all their money, and I'm like, well, yeah, you got to get paid for things, but you got to change your mindset too. Not everybody's out to get you type scenario.
I think we're very aligned there, Caitlin. Not surprisingly, I've had two very difficult projects in my career, and I do tell people that work for me, especially some of the younger professionals, those are the projects you learn the most, but you don't
Mm-hmm.
learn it when it's happening. It takes some
Yeah.
time after the kind of the pain of the project to kind of refocus and look back and say, I'm never doing that again. And
Mm-hmm.
you develop skills and techniques, and you make yourself so much better when you have those challenging projects that you don't ever want to repeat. And ideally, as a director, I try to head those things off for all of the projects that Ten works on. And you'll inevitably find new challenges along the way, but if we can interrupt some of those things before they ever get going, then we don't have those really painful experiences, and that's, I think that benefits everybody on the project, all the way from the laborers to the CEO of the owner. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, we're in lockstep on that one.
At
Yeah, no doubt.
least you try. I know I left our job, so I couldn't finish out the project, but if
The spirit never changed.
yeah.
There were challenges on that job. There's no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, it was still getting that project finished, and there were tough days, no doubt, but I think at the end of the day, it's a good project, and I'm pretty sure the owner's happy with it. So
Yeah.
it's
As
it's
far as I
important.
know, I got a text
Yeah,
message from the lead oncologist like way
yeah,
after it was done, and I was like, "Great, it's fantastic."
yep,
I know when I left that job, I've had professionals leave jobs partway through, and I wanted to make sure I left my team in a good spot. And I told them, like, I'm friends with all of you guys. Like, you text me if you've got a question, because I did the master plan and a lot of the drawings. So if you've got a
yep,
question, if you need me to look at what email I sent Matt like months ago, I'm like, search for these words in my email. But
yep,
making sure I wanted to make sure that the cancer center was successful in the end, even though I left.
yeah.
But it was fun.
No, it was a great project, and it was a springboard for me too. So I definitely look back on that positively.
Mm-hmm.
And there were good people on the project. If
Yeah.
there's people on the project that want to work together and care about the success of the project, that team will have fun, and it'll be a successful project.
Yeah. And I'm glad you had civil background with the amount of work we had to do underground and attaching to what, 6 or 7 additions to a hospital.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
that was, it was fun.
Yep. Yep.
Uh,
It's a good time.
yeah. Switching over to the organizational side, has there been any particular organizations that have left an impact on your career?
um. So there's a few, and I'm using the Pittsburgh market as kind of my litmus. That's where I've spent most of my career. Um, the Master Builders Association of Pittsburgh is the trade organization that represents the largest general contractors in Pittsburgh. That organization provides training, um, has a lot of great opportunities for young professionals, good education as an internship award program. I mean, that's a wonderful organization. Um, it's managed through the contractors, but again, it has outreach. I think that's a great place. For me, the American Society of Civil Engineers, they always did seminars when I was in college.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the trade organization for civil engineers, and then they have student chapters, which were great. Um, getting out into um, the energy services world. There's some unique trade organizations that are tailored to that business, um, and also kind of one of the things I'd add is I was very fortunate where my career kind of focused in on labs, healthcare, higher education, and there's obviously plethora of opportunities there from
Mm-hmm.
lab design as a conference. There's plenty of conferences out there, but there's very technical, specialized facilities. I always wanted to know what the building was trying to do, what the customer was trying to do with the building, um, and that tailored how I built the projects. I've worked with hydrofluoric acid hoods, which when you research hydrofluoric acid, you realize it reacts to metal, which is why the hoods are fiberglass. These are things they don't teach you in civil engineering school.
Mm-hmm.
These are things you have to want to learn about in order to deliver your projects. I never really just stopped at the drawing set that I was given. I wanted to understand how the whole building came together, what they were trying to do, how I could help make that better along the way. I'm part of this project for 18 months, 24 months, whatever. That building's going to last for 50 years. So I need to make sure that I'm doing my part to make sure that that building is going to be successful for the life of that building. In my new role, we're taking old buildings and making them better. So
Yeah.
it's kind of almost a full circle, if you will, where I'm looking at, okay, these are the mistakes that were made in the past or things that technologies have changed. Now we're going to go and upgrade them. So it's kind of a unique journey through the life of the building. Sounds maybe corny to think about it, but I'm thinking about it
Yeah.
like this is a really cool thing that I'm part of. So uh,
Yeah.
it's
Do you
been
feel like you have to do more research now in history on how they
um,
used? Like, I feel I have to do that with all the fit out work I've had to do. Is just when was the building built and how did they build it when they did that. Or even my house was almost 100 years old for most of it. There is an addition on it, but like I had failure at a window and I'm like, okay, I know how to detail it. I know what I need to see. And I went and called a very senior architect. I'm like, okay, how was construction done during this? Because I know how I would detail it now, but how did they actually build it then to learn? So I feel like a lot of my research now is just how was construction done 100 years ago?
Watch some good This Old House stuff.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, incidentally, I just looked at drawings for high school that was 110 years old. So original drawings. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, same way. It will affect how you do a renovation. Um, in our role as design builder, performance contractor, we have to know how to do these things. A lot of contractors are like, well, that's the architect's problem. That's it's not how I ever approach projects. It's my problem. I mean, I need to know how to build it
Mm-hmm.
too. So,
Especially
um,
if you don't like my answer.
and if I can find a better way, I'm going to take advantage of it.
Yep.
So it's a really cool part of the business. I think is kind of having that opportunity to experience some of these old buildings and how they were put together, and like why in God's name was it done like this? And some of the stuff is I can't believe we don't build it like that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the details, some of the effort that was put into some of these old buildings. I mean, it's just beautiful. The detailing, the construction materials were so much more durable than maybe what we're putting in today, just from a cost perspective. And love to try and keep those if we can, which we
Yeah.
did at the cancer center.
Mm-hmm. Going up to a historic building.
Yeah.
So, and then I like always wrapping up my podcast with this final question, and it's what advice do you have for young professionals just starting their career?
So if you're still in school, I strongly encourage an internship, a co-op. Um, if you're considering construction, almost every single one of them will hire interns and co-ops. I know there's career fairs for this. That would be step one. That gives you experience. It allows you to kind of test drive the industry with a very low risk.
Mm-hmm.
If you hate it, if you don't want any part of it, hopefully you're on
Yep.
not one of those bad jobs, but at least it gives you an off ramp before you get into your career on it. Um, Once you're in the career, we talked a little bit about experience. You need to understand that there's going to be things that you don't know. How you approach learning those things from experience is very important. You want to learn from as many people as you can. The steam fitter out in the field welding pipe can help explain to you how that air handler should be piped. The
Mm-hmm.
iron worker is going to know how to put steel together better than your steel design class. Um, don't be afraid to talk to those tradesmen out in the field and women and learn from them just like you would from your fellow project engineers, your superintendent, your project manager. Very, eyes open early in your career and get out in the field. The projects are built in the field. It's very easy to get down in the rabbit hole where you're on your computer and you don't come out of your trailer for the entire day. Make sure you take the site walks, get out there and walk around. See how it's getting put together. Just stand there and watch them. Even say, "Hey, do you care if I just stand here and watch you for 20 minutes?"
Mm-hmm.
And most of them will say, "Absolutely, that's fine." And they'll even explain to you why they're doing the things the way they're doing. So, um, yeah, lots of opportunity there. You got to put the effort in. You got to put the work in. It's a tough job. It's 6 in the morning till 4 some days. So it has some challenges. It's cold, it's hot, whatever. You got to go out there.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's good advice for architects, engineers, and designers too. I'm always advocating for the young professionals. Speak up, like ask to go on the job site. But I know when I was a young professional, I would have been scared shitless to go up to a sub and say, "What are you doing?
Yep.
How's this
Yeah.
going?"
Go with the construction manager, the general contractor. Would be the easiest course for the engineering, the architect side. Just showing up and walking around, not usually preferred. You got to check in with them anyway. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, usually there's a young professional involved from the construction company that would love to maybe team up and walk around. And I know in Pittsburgh those organizations are pretty tied together. ACE is a good program,
Mm-hmm.
and so there's good opportunities there to help grow together as an young architect and young project manager. Those are good things to do.
Yeah, just see what's going on and learn how they did it. That'll help you
Yeah,
grow.
absolutely.
Now, if anyone's interested in what you're doing at the Efficiency Network, to give you a call or want to learn more on the construction side, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Sure. Can I text you my email and you throw it up or
I
whatever?
can do that. I can put
Yeah.
the email below.
And then my cell phone number for the podcast.
I would not do that. Even
I'll
if
give you my
somebody
work
gives
email.
me that, I
Yeah,
get rid of it.
I'll give you my work email, and you're welcome to reach out at any time, and we can have discussions.
Yep. And I'll also link the Efficiency Network below in case anybody wants to look to partner with you guys or has
Cool.
questions on efficiency. So, yeah. Thank you so much, Matt, for taking the time to speak with me today. It was great catching up. Always
Yeah,
good to see you.
absolutely. Thanks. Appreciate it, and good opportunity today. So
Yep.
good seeing you as well.
I hope you enjoyed our discussion today. Learn some advice to take with you and see how our industry is all tied together to create the world around us. Check out the description below for any links or resources we discussed. If you liked the episode, please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up and leave a comment below. It really helps others be able to discover this resource and support finding that career path that best works for them. If you know someone that has inspired your own career that you'd like me to interview, let me know in the comments below, or you can reach out to me via my website or LinkedIn. I'd be happy to share their story or your own. Thank you again, and I cannot wait for the next career story I get to share with you next week.